there was two logs underneath the edge of the rope, but it looked really like they were fitted together, like you took one log and you know.
Like if you were building a cabin, like that
Right.
kind of, yeah.
It could mean the team is closer than ever to finding and shutting off the booby trap that has thwarted efforts to excavate the money pit for more than 2 centuries.
The war for Oak Island's treasure has reached a turning point. For 200 years, the island's defenses at Smith's Cove have held strong, but a stunning new discovery has breached the fortress. An ancient mechanism, the source of the booby traps, was found. This breakthrough may finally lead the team to victory. An island poisoned, the curse of the money pit. It's hard to believe, but Oak Island wasn't always a synonym for obsession and ruin. For millennia, it was just another piece of the Nova Scotian coastline, unremarkable and untouched. That all changed in the summer of 1795. The story, now etched into the very bedrock of North American lore, tells of a young Daniel McInnes who, while wandering the island, discovered a peculiar circular depression in the ground beneath an oak tree whose branches bore the scars of a tackle block. It was an anomaly that screamed of human intervention. Believing he had stumbled upon the hidden works of pirates, perhaps the legendary Captain Kidd himself, he and 2 friends, John Smith and Anthony Vaughan, began to dig.
They have also obtained physical evidence that a ship, possibly filled with treasure, could have been deliberately sunk and then hidden in the triangle-shaped swamp.
What they found became the original sin of the Oak Island mystery, the first taste of an obsession that would poison the minds of all who followed. This wasn't just a hole in the ground. A few feet below the surface, their shovels scraped against a layer of expertly laid flagstones. It was an unmistakable seal. Fired with excitement, they continued, and 10 feet below that, they hit a solid platform of oak logs fitted tightly together. Then another 10 feet and another oak platform. It was an unmistakable message, a declaration of intent left by persons unknown. Something of immense value had been deliberately and painstakingly buried here, protected by layers of effort that defied simple explanation. Why? The motive for those first searchers and the generations that followed was a toxic cocktail of greed and romantic pirate lore. The golden age of piracy was not long past, and tales of buried treasure were the currency of the day. But the money pit held a dark and deadly secret. As the first organized treasure company, the Onslow Syndicate, pushed deeper past the 90-foot level in the early 1800s, they hit what they believed was the final barrier, a large stone inscribed with strange symbols. The next morning, they returned to find the shaft violently filled with over 60 feet of seawater. They had triggered the island's most infamous and diabolical defense, the flood tunnels. The original depositors had engineered a work of breathtaking, evil brilliance, a series of subterranean canals connecting the money pit to the ocean at the nearby Smith's Cove. They had weaponized the very sea itself, creating a hydraulic trap that was self-resetting and, for 2 centuries, utterly unbeatable. This act transformed the search from a simple excavation into a full-scale war against an unseen, highly intelligent adversary. It was this watery Cerberus that bankrupted countless syndicates and cemented the island's dark reputation as a place that actively resisted being understood, a place that seemed to kill those who got too close.
You'd need a lot to pack a lot of treasure.
We need to bag this.
When Rick and Marty Lagna arrived on the scene, having purchased a controlling stake in the island in 2006, they brought with them a new philosophy. Rick, a man whose life was set on this course by a 1965 Reader's Digest article, knew this wasn't a battle to be won with bigger pumps and wider drills, but with sharper minds and better science. For him, this was never just about finding riches, it was a deeply personal quest to comprehend the past, to solve a 200-year-old riddle, and to piece together a story that time had tried to erase. And just when you thought the money pit had yielded all its secrets, it revealed another that would change the course of the hunt forever. In their modern-day efforts to bypass the flooded and collapsed main shaft, the team focused their attention on a nearby depression called the Garden Shaft, long thought to be an early searcher tunnel. As they pushed their massive steel caisson deeper, they didn't just find mud and stone. At nearly 100 feet down, they hit wood. They broke through into a dark, hidden passageway, its walls and ceiling lined with hand-hewn timbers dating back to the 17th century. The construction was ancient, complex, and showed signs of intentional damage, as if someone had deliberately tried to collapse it long ago. This wasn't just a pit, it was an underground complex. The discovery of this tunnel, seemingly connecting to a mysterious seismic anomaly the team had dubbed the Baby Blob, was a paradigm shift. It proved the original works were far more extensive than a single shaft, and that the team was, for the very first time, walking in the footsteps of the original depositors. But every step forward came at a familiar price. If the money pit was the ideological man-made heart of the mystery, the strange eye-shaped swamp on the island's southern shore was its dark, enigmatic soul. For decades, this triangular marsh was dismissed by most as a natural geological feature. But for the late Fred Nolan, a surveyor and longtime island resident who dedicated his life to the search, it was the key to everything. As the Leginas expanded their search beyond the money pit, guided by Nolan's incredible hand-drawn maps, the swamp began to tell a strange and impossible story.
Investigative journalist Randall Sullivan may have just found an important clue connecting the Oak Island mystery to the 17th century pirate Captain William Kidd.
It began with the confirmation of a feature Nolan had long insisted existed: a stone road, a paved causeway running directly into and underneath the bog. Its craftsmanship was old, perhaps 500 years old, and it served no logical modern purpose. Why would anyone in their right mind build a road directly into a swamp? Unless, as the team began to suspect with a growing sense of awe, it wasn't always a swamp. The thing is, for the Legina team, this discovery was both a strategic gift and a profound, history-altering puzzle. On one hand, it provided a new, tantalizing target that pulled the entire focus of the search away from the money pit for the first time. But on the other hand, it defied all known history of the island and of North America. Geoscientist Dr. Ian Spooner was brought in to analyze the swamp's geology, and his analysis was nothing short of stunning. Core samples taken from deep within the bog revealed a truth that was almost unbelievable. The swamp was artificially created. Beneath the layers of natural sediment, Spooner found a clear man-made boundary. He found layers of clay, charcoal, and unusual mineral deposits that had no business being there. He found evidence of cut trees and stumps buried deep within the mire, proving that a mature forest once stood where the swamp now lies. Someone with immense resources and effort had deliberately manipulated the landscape, transforming what might have been a cove or a harbor into a bog for one reason: to conceal something massive. The discovery of remarkably preserved ship parts, including a thick wooden brace and a ship's rail trunnion with features that could be traced as far back as the 8th century, completely shattered all previous timelines. This wasn't a 17th century pirate operation. The evidence pointed to significant organized activity on Oak Island centuries before Columbus even set sail. This wasn't just a treasure hunt anymore, it was an archaeological anomaly of the highest order. This new dangerous reality culminated in the monumental excavation at Smith's Cove, the suspected source of the money pit's booby traps. The team reasoned that if they could find and shut down the box drains that fed the flood tunnels, they could finally drain the money pit and walk right to the treasure. In an incredible feat of modern engineering, they constructed a massive steel cofferdam, holding back the relentless tides of the Atlantic, and began to peel back the layers of sand and clay. What they found was a structure of breathtaking complexity and genius. They unearthed a massive U-shaped wooden structure, its beams expertly joined with Roman numerals carved into them, functioning as a primary intake for the entire flood system. Near it, they found a second, similar structure and the remains of the 5 distinct box drains, laid out like the fingers of a hand, just as the 19th century legend had described. The wood, shaped by ancient adzes and axes long before the age of modern machinery, was carbon dated to the mid-1700s, aligning perfectly with an era of intense French and British conflict in the region. And that's when everything changed. There was no turning back. As they meticulously cleared the mud and clay from around this incredible structure, metal detection expert Gary Drayton got a signal. It was faint but clear. Carefully, Rick Lagina began to dig in the wet sand, and he pulled out a simple, heavy object made of dark metal. It was a cross, unmistakably a Christian cross made of solid lead. This was a paradigm-shattering escalation. The team had moved from the realm of pirates and colonial engineering to the world of the Crusades. Subsequent analysis of the lead's composition suggested it originated from a mine in southern France and that the cross itself was medieval, likely dating to the 13th or 14th century. Suddenly, the most outlandish, most romantic, and most unbelievable theory of them all, that the Knights Templar, after their brutal persecution by King Philip IV of France in 1307, had fled Europe with their holy relics and immense treasure and buried it all on Oak Island, seemed terrifyingly, undeniably plausible. The U-shaped structure wasn't just a booby trap for a pirate's chest, it could be the final lock on the Templar bank vault, a vault that might contain anything from the Holy Grail to the Ark of the Covenant itself. Artifacts, theories, and a new crusade. By the early 2020s, the hunt on Oak Island was at a fever pitch. The discoveries at Smith's Cove and the unearthing of the lead cross had fundamentally transformed the quest. Faced with the explosive prospect of a genuine Templar connection, every new find, no matter how small, was re-examined through this new radical and electrifying lens. The core bargain of the Oak Island mystery had always been simple. In exchange for immense financial and personal investment, the island would slowly, grudgingly, give up its secrets. But the nature of those secrets was changing dramatically. What nobody talks about is the fatal flaw built into the Oak Island treasure hunt, a clash of historical narratives. The pirate theory, centered on characters like Captain Kidd or Blackbeard, was a relatively simple, contained story. But the Templar theory was something else entirely. It saw the island's mysteries not as a localized event, but as the final chapter of a story of global significance. Critics in the mainstream academic world had always screamed that the team was chasing shadows, but the lead cross gave those shadows form, substance, and a terrifying weight. Freed from the intellectual constraints of the pirate narrative, the team began methodically and with a new sense of urgency, re-evaluating everything. A beautiful gold-plated brooch set with a single gemstone, a remarkable find in its own right, was now seen in a new light. A stunning rhodolite garnet, hand-cut and set in silver, dating to the 1500s or 1600s, was no longer just a piece of lost jewelry, but potential evidence supporting the theory that Marie Antoinette's lost crown jewels had been smuggled out of France during the Revolution and brought to Oak Island. Even smaller finds, like chunks of grape-shot ammunition and a collection of British and French military buttons, pointed to a significant military presence on the island, possibly linked to the ill-fated French Duc d'Anville expedition of 1746, a massive armada that mysteriously lost ships, men, and purpose off the coast of Nova Scotia. Could they have been on a secret mission to retrieve or perhaps deposit something of immense value? The discovery of a Spanish 8 Maravedis copper coin from the 1600s found near the swamp further complicated the already tangled timeline, suggesting a Spanish presence in an area historically dominated by the French and the British. Each artifact was another piece of a puzzle with no box, fragments of multiple seemingly unrelated stories, all converging on this one tiny, insignificant island. The team was no longer just digging for gold, they were performing a kind of archaeological exorcism, attempting to cast out 2 centuries of rumor and let the artifacts themselves speak the truth. The evidence now overwhelmingly suggested that the island had been used and altered by several different groups over a number of ages, a multi-layered secret guarded by a multi-layered defense. A small hinge piece from a potential chest, fragments of ancient pottery, a strange cross-like symbol found on another coin, it all pointed towards something bigger, older, and infinitely more important than gold. This new dangerous dynamic culminated in a renewed, focused investigation of Nolan's Cross, a massive formation of strategically placed boulders laid out in the shape of a perfect Christian cross, a feature so large it can only be properly seen from the air. Researcher John Edwards had long proposed that the cross was a Templar navigational tool, a sacred marker pointing the way to their hidden vault. At one of the key boulders, the team discovered irrefutable evidence that it had been artificially placed atop a man-made stone formation. Beneath it, they found cut wood and a stick that had clearly been used as a lever, concrete proof that ancient peoples had moved these massive, multi-ton stones for a specific and unknown purpose. The Templar theory was no longer just a theory, it now had ground-truthed, tangible scientific evidence. The hunt had become a modern-day crusade. In the aftermath of these monumental discoveries, the McInnes and their fellowship found themselves locked in a new, deeply profound stalemate. The finds at Smith's Cove and the Lead Cross may have obliterated the simple pirate theories, but the island's central mystery remained. The team, though better equipped and more knowledgeable than any who came before, was now facing a truth far more complex than they ever imagined. Their relentless assault on the island may have reinforced the convictions of theorists who argue that the secret of Oak Island is of global importance, a secret that could rewrite the history of the New World. 2 centuries of digging led to this chilling moment. Have they uncovered the truth or unleashed something far darker? Could Oak Island be hiding more than treasure? Like, subscribe, and decide for yourself.